Welcome to the Advertising Forum. This is episode 1 of our new series, Innovation within CTV, sponsored by Viant.
Today, we are joined by Molly Schultz, EVP Investment Strategy at IPG Mediabrands, and Field Garthwaite, CEO of Iris TV. For those who do not know, Iris was acquired by Viant in 2024. Molly, Field, thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome to the Advertising Forum.
Thanks for having us.
Great to be here.
Yeah, we're happy you're here. We're happy to be working with you closely, Field, and the team at Viant. Molly, this first question's for you. Coming from IPG, TV has always been number one. It's now that streaming consumption has been growing. From an IPG Mediabrands perspective, how are you helping clients make CTV work harder for their dollars?
It's a great question. And there is still a lot of value in TV. I think, specifically when it comes to CTV, there's sort of this interesting mind twist that happens because it's digital. And so you expect it to have all of the targeting and suitability and transparency and reporting capabilities that other digital channels have. But we haven't always seen that, which is a bummer because it is such a massive channel. So we're always looking for partners and tools and ways that we can increase our level of sophistication when it comes to streaming to make sure we're delivering the most value for our clients. And lately, contextual intelligence has been a really important and critical way that we can do that. And so, I think for a long time, and this goes across all channels, not just CTV, but audience first has been our mantra. But context is equally as important as having the right definition of the audience because you want to make sure that you have that relevance. And so anything we can do to get closer to relevance by way of contextual intelligence is going to help us do that. So again, looking for new signals, new tools, ways that we can really kind of up the ante on a channel that is so massive, yet hasn't quite had the same level of acceleration as other digital channels.
Field, this is what Iris does, right? You're working on an infrastructure to make contextual targeting possible across CTV. How are you working with IPG and why does this matter so much in the CTV space to have this type of framework and infrastructure available?
So yeah, it's like Molly said, streaming in, I think it was June, overtook TV, right? So now streaming TV or CTV is bigger than broadcast and cable combined. And we're seeing a lot of research now and measurement that we're conducting and other companies are conducting that's showing that it not only is a brand building medium, which we've known for decades, but it's actually driving things like website conversion and sales. And we're seeing that very consistently over and over. But what's kind of been lacking in the space, as Molly was chatting about, is there's been household IDs, there's been identity data, and that's really effective and important. But with CTV, it's a shared device. So you often have about 3 people in the household. And without actually understanding what's on the screen, so that's, signals around the context, the emotion, even brand safety, you really don't know when your ad runs and whether you're kind of targeting and reaching the right consumer who you're actually trying to reach in the household. So that's really what we've been focused on solving at Iris TV is creating these consistent and accurate signals with a whole host of data partners. Now that includes Acxiom Contextual CTV. So this is a new product that IPG's created that accompanies their identity targeting and now allows them to target based on what viewers are watching. And that's that data is stored on the Iris ID, which is our content ID that we assign to every TV show and movie with publishers that we work with.
Incredible. Molly, so obviously context is really important in today's CTV space and in the ecosystem that's growing so rapidly. But what led to the development of Acxiom Contextual CTV and what were you trying to address by doing so?
Yeah, a couple of things Field just mentioned, I'll double down on, which led us there. Having sort of a foundational infrastructure that can work across, which is the Iris ID, which can work across many different partners in the entire streaming ecosystem. Is huge because, when you think about how we've had to do this to date, it's individual publisher tools, it's individual sort of segmentation that, makes it really difficult for teams to scale, let alone try and compare performance. So you're talking about something that's incredibly manual, incredibly inconsistent. And then at the end of the day, you aren't really confident in the type of performance that you're getting or the type of results that you're getting. Certainly not enough to be able to translate that across partners. So having that consistency is a total game changer.
This is a perfect opportunity. Molly passes me the ball. I pass you the ball. We're all on the same team together. Just let's talk more about this. The fact that the lack of access to similar data in TV, like shows episode targeting, it's often listed as the reason why CTV investment still lags behind viewer consumption, right? So how does Iris TV solve for that? As the CEO, as the co-founder, and as someone who's been in the space for so long.
So yeah, we're not going to go on like a 5-minute description of the Video Privacy Protection Act, which is what Molly was talking about, where there's been a lot of blockers from actually storing show and episode information with personally identifiable information. And it goes back to like a 1980s court case where if he stored that data, it was like a $2,500 fine per instance. And so that's really left a lot of broadcasters, content owners concerned about those types of laws because they'll get fined, and they obviously do not want that. So that's been a big blocker. We've created technology that kind of basically protects and ensures that never happens. The Iris ID operates almost like a content data clean room, where we work with the content owners in a hosted environment that they completely control, right? Where this data goes, whether they're putting it to their ad server, their SSP, passing it to DSPs, and then we're helping them connect their content to now it's approaching 20 different computer vision AI models that turn the TV shows and movies into these consistent and accurate signals that are, stuff that we're all familiar with contextual, right? It might be luxury travel, it might be family oriented, it might be, cooking. And then there's new signals that kind of can only be created from sight, sound, and motion. And these are things like emotional signals. So like actually knowing kind of that it's a joyful moment that maybe Coca-Cola wants to target, right? Or it's a moment that's maybe a little bit more somber. And that's kind of a great moment for like cancer centers in America, so like those types of differences, which are, very far ranging, are really valuable opportunities to be able to control when your, ad creative runs. And we find really consistently that when you have this in a consistent manner, it drives really significant results for the brand. And that's great for content owners, right? So in this environment where advertisers are looking for more value, right? There's a lot of uncertainty right now. It's really significant to be able to say, hey, yeah, and we're kind of driving these increases in awareness or favorability, but also more importantly, we're actually seeing this drive the down funnel outcomes that you care about, whether it's foot traffic or website visits or sales.
Sure. That's amazing, Field.
Yeah. And then there
Yeah, Molly, go for it,
two
please.
things, sorry to cut you off there. There are just a couple of things that added to that really, make this partnership work. And we're so excited about it. So like Field said, having that consistency just opens up the ecosystem to us so that we can then layer on Acxiom data to, combine the sort of best of both worlds there while also maintaining control, which I think is a very critical piece of this partnership. When it comes to contextual vendors out there, a lot of times they couple media with it. This lets us use the Iris tech along with our Acxiom data in a way where we can still completely control the media. Which again, everything sort of comes back to control, transparency, suitability, relevance, all the things that we need to make sure that we are showing up for consumers in the right way, which will then ultimately lead to performance. So having those sort of three things, amazing data and tech at the core that we can then also match up as we see fit with the right inventory. And the fact that all of the publishers are now comfortable with this because of what Field just outlined, it just sort of, it makes sure we're covered from every possible angle and gives us the ultimate control to tell the right story for the audience.
Amazing, Molly. Can you talk through any examples across IPG as a whole of just how you've seen this demonstrated in real time, in real life?
Yeah. It's really simple. That's kind of what I want to start with. And that's what I love about this partnership, because sure, we can, nerd out on the data and the tech, obviously Field to a much better degree than I can. But ultimately, what is important for me and for the people on our team and, on our side of this partnership is being able to have something that is like makes perfect sense and is easy to execute. And that's what we see in both the activation and the execution. So, essentially, it's as simple as, do you want to be in the right place at the right time in front of the right people in a way that will, again, be super consistent across what you're doing and enable you to then replicate that time and time again with different publishers and have a really strong testing and learning strategy. So yes, we've seen that with a bunch of different verticals. One that comes to mind is an entertainment company that was looking to target people who are watching shows about certain pieces of content and then layered on with certain mindsets and sort of certain emotional overtones or undertones. And it worked. I mean, it makes sense. That's the other thing. It makes perfect sense. But if you can prove it out with the data in a way that you can then replicate later, like that's really what we're looking for. And that's what's really powerful. So we saw upwards of like 20% higher tune in to the shows that this client was trying to drive attention for. A lot. We don't really see those types of numbers often. So, and then nearly 95% lower cost of acquiring that viewer, which is also, especially, when we're facing some economic headwinds, that's more and more important.
Go IPG and Iris.
Metrics across every.
That's amazing. So Molly, that was hearing those kinds of stats showcases the importance of how Iris is an amazing partner to the IPG family of brands and agencies. I want to kick it one more question back to you, Field. Just if you have any other data that supports how this has been effective across CTV advertisers, just for our audience so that understand where else they can use Iris.tv.
Yeah, I think the kind of TV buying mentality, kind of going back, right? It's obviously still the biggest channel and one of the most important ones. We're just now seeing streaming consumption has surpassed it, but ad dollars haven't shifted. The way that TV dollars are purchased, right, in upfronts where you actually have control over shows and episodes and types of content you're targeting doesn't exist in CTV, because in TV, since it's multicast and everyone's seeing the same programming, there's only tens of thousands of ad slots per year that ultimately you're like buying and selling and trading on. But in CTV, there's tens of billions per day. And so that's where kind of having access to this data becomes much more important. The spreadsheet and type of historical show and episode type targeting, it's really hard to scale that, right? And so what we've seen when you can use these more granular signals for targeting or measurement is that it really significantly impacts upper funnel metrics. So a partner that we've done some work with, along with others, but this one we've done a lot of studies with, is Upwave, and we've measured a couple dozen campaigns with them, and then comparatively looking at all of their CTV campaigns, they kind of looked at our performance compared to the average, and that might just be a campaign running on Hulu or using identity alone, and they found really significant increase. I think it was a 2x increase in awareness on average, about a 3x increase on recall, and a 5x increase in favorability. And when you think about TV ads, that's really what you care about, is like, okay, do they know who my brand is? Do they remember us favorably? And are they going to think about us maybe when they're grocery store and they're kind of choosing, a dish soap, right? So those are really important metrics for brand building. But we're also seeing from other customers who, like in the software space, they care about downloads or they care about installs. Sometimes it's really obvious, right? Kind of the type of targeting you want to do. But we found that it's also kind of really interesting to kind of listen and see, okay, cool, we're targeting our ads, we're using identity signals and maybe geo, not anything contextual. But because we have the Iris ID, we can start to identify what environments are actually really working for this brand, this creative, this campaign. And we're finding that there'll be like really surprising kind of outcomes where for one recent customer, everything from like pets to crime, and this is like totally not endemic to their, kind of type of branding and the creative at all, was actually really driving conversion and sales for them. And so those are the types of data points that now are possible when this data is consistent and accurate. And it's almost like identity data. You wouldn't expect to have publishers have a different segment for an auto intender, right? Or for a high income household. And if, NBC or Disney gave you different data sets for those, you probably wouldn't trust them, right? And so that's something that we're just trying to help standardize across the industry. So it's easy for advertisers to trade off these signals when they see something work.
Well, Field, Molly, you have both made this episode very easy to understand how you both are making an impact in our space. So thank you for doing that. Thank you, Viant, for being a part of this episode and sponsoring the series. Thank you, IPG, for being our guest. Field, Molly, ATG, until next time, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.